Okay, hello everybody. My name is Jen Lamberts and I am a teacher at the Mary Lyon K through 8 school. My email is jlamberts@bostonpublicschools.org. I am more than happy to answer any other questions. This will be a brief overview. I've been teaching math and science for the past 8 years, so if you have any questions, I would love to help you out. The goal of this screencast is to give an overview of the kit. It does not replace a live training. So in part of this overview, I'm going to show you where you can find the professional development opportunities, because if the science department is able to offer trainings in force and motion, I highly recommend you do that for a more detailed overview. I'm going to show you two of the main web resources that you'll use. Both of these two, the BPS Science Weebly and the FOSS website, you will use all the time and are invaluable to your teaching practice. So I want to make sure that you understand what is there. We're going to go over the main standards, and then I'll cover some tips for you when going into this. Now, if you have never taught a FOSS kit, you need to understand that it is a hands-on. The students will be actively engaged. It's an inquiry-based model. Your materials are all packaged and given to you. It really is a great curriculum. I do feel it needs to be supplemented here and there, but ultimately it's a very engaging curriculum. So I encourage you to really read the overview, read the background information so you can deliver this information to the best of your ability. So you'll have a teacher resource book. Unfortunately, most of these resource books are also online, but the Force in Motion resource book is not. Teacher resource book is not online. There is a student resource book, and it is an ebook that is not super user-friendly, but what is helpful, helpful for the students who say, oh, they forgot their book at school, they have access to it at home. I would encourage you to look into Bookshare, or another way to get the books on tape for some of your students. I know oftentimes some students that are pulled out of other classrooms are then in the science classroom and also asked to read. So take that barrier out. If your goal is not to have them learn how to read, but to understand some science content, give them a book on tape. And then finally, your lab notebook will be online. So these are the two resources that you will go to all the time. I want you to write them down right now, bookmark them, you'll use them all the time. The first one we'll talk about is the bpsscienceweebly.com. So here it is. On the left side are some tabs that you will find very useful. The first one I want to look at is the Student Learning Outcomes, Pacing Guides, and Calendars. So this will be really helpful when you are planning your unit. We get each kit for about 10 weeks, and it's a lot to cover in 10 weeks. You need to be organized in order to cover as much as you can so there's not wasted time. So I actually have downloaded just a little bit of the pacing guide. And what you'll see here is, for example, we have investigation 1. It's called Here to There. The recommendation is for 5 sessions, which for 55 to 60-minute classes. So it should take you about a week. What I have always done is I print out a Google Calendar and I set up my unit for the whole 10 weeks. So I try to keep on pace. Of course, sometimes classes go faster, sometimes classes go slower, but you should have an end in sight. And then here on the right side, they actually have the proficiency levels that you want the kids to reach by the end of the investigation. So for example, the main goal of investigation 1 is to be able to calculate distance using the distance equation. Students should be able to do that. They should be able to measure distance in standard metric units. If you have a proficiency written and then it has a PS11, this is the standard. So this is physical science standard 11. So we would like the students need to observe and describe an object's motion in terms of change of position, explain how to use a reference point to determine the distance moved by an object. So when you're finishing investigation 1, make sure your students can do this. TE stands for Technology and Engineering 2.1. So make sure this will be a very useful information for you. couple of other things that you'll have. This will be where the video clips will be. Science and literacy. Now, we are also, while we are science teachers, we also kind of teach reading. So there's some close reading resources here. There's argumentation through common writing assignments. So this is really evidence-based reading. This is great information. There is at least one common writing assignment per unit. So make sure that you touch on that. And then science note making. Here you'll also, this is where the PD opportunities and announcements will show up. It will also be on My Learning Plan, but it will tend to be here first. You have some science classrooms observations, what to look for in your classroom, and they even have links to worksheets that or teacher sheets that you can actually use in your classroom. Here is a link to the Science MCAS resources. Now, I understand that 7th grade is not a science testing grade, but I know as an 8th grade teacher, your colleagues will greatly appreciate you making sure that you cover the standards in the force and motion unit. And you have some practice here that you can go to and maybe give it to the students as an assessment or just as a measure to see where they're at. There's a link to the citywide science fair. There's some more information on technology instructional manuals. So you have a lot of information here. I highly recommend you check it out. Now, the second one is called fossweb.com. I want you to go to this right now. So at this point, I want you to pause this screencast, and I want you to actually go to FOSSWeb and create yourself an account. You can follow these simple steps 1 through 4. And then I'm going to go on to the next page just so you can see what is happening next. This is the actual username for the first edition for Force in Motion that you'll need. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or call this number or send an email to this website. They tend to get back pretty quickly. But you want to have an account before the start of the school year. So I'll just show you what you get with your account. So this is my teacher page. And because I teach 7th and 8th grade 7th and 8th grade science, I have all of the 7th and 8th grade science units. So we're doing force and motion. We're going to click on it and I'll show you what we have here. So you got some important course updates. You have course teaching notes, resources by investigation you will find hugely helpful. So this will be helpful in planning your week. So for example, investigation 1, it shows you the 4 lab notebook sheets that your students will get. And it also has a teacher transparency for you. So when I'm creating my lessons, I create them I have a smartboard, so I'm able to create them in my smartboard notebook. And I use this site to help me get all the materials that I need. Sometimes you also have multimedia, and that is designated with this little star. These are also very helpful. And it also is nice because it gives you kind of an overview of this. I sometimes use the overview when I'm coming up with my learning targets for my students. Now let's just go back to the module detail so I can show you what else we have. So in this, you also have the module summary. So if you just want to get an overview of the main goals of this investigation, you also can go to here. And they have an online lab notebook. They have your assessments all online with the answer keys here. They have a multimedia site. So everything that you would be using multimedia is lined up here. And they also have an ebook for the students. Now, I did tell you I don't love this ebook, but it's helpful in that if the students forget it at home, they can have it. So it is really just the book online. It won't read it to you or anything like that. And then another thing I find really helpful is this glossary. I sometimes have printed this glossary for my students and they've put it in their vocabulary sections. We also create vocabulary sections together, but this maybe is helpful for some of your students who have, learning challenges or your English language learners. This would be helpful for them. I'm going to stop here